Hi guys, I'm Jim from the Old Warlock. This is Alexander.
Hey!
And keeping on with a theme that we've been following here for a little while, we're looking at some of the earlier books that we use on a regular basis.
That's true.
Actually. And we have been kind of giving some thought to the different monsters that we enjoy using in our different campaigns. From the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons Monster Manual, Fiend Folio, and Monster Manual 2. And we've gone over a few of those in a separate video with the original Monster Manual, but we thought that we would continue that. Just real quickly look at some monsters from the Fiend Folio and Monster Manual 2, which we don't use as often.
Yeah.
Those books, we don't use them as often, but we thought we'd examine a couple of the monsters out of there that we do use on an infrequent basis, just to kind of round things out in terms of what monsters are available for you to use in the AD&D or first edition, second edition-y system.
So let's get started.
Let's do that.
Like we said before, you've probably seen, I'm assuming that the traditional Monster Manual video will be out before this one, so you may have seen already us discussing things like liches and ghosts and
red dragons
and red dragons and all kinds of different stuff.
Stuff we like.
But these, these other books, the Fiend Folio and the Monster Manual 2, contain a little bit more unique, some more niche monsters that you would use in very specific situations.
Good word.
Thank you.
You did really well.
I go to college. All right, so you want to start us off here?
Yeah, one of the things that I've used from time to time, usually in desert situations, is the Antlion. And the Antlion, armor class 2, 8 hit dice. It's great because it just lies there in its burrow, and then it will attack you as you go by, which to me is a great monster to have out there on the arid plains, out in the desert, like I said. Something that just kind of sneaks up on you, and you have to be looking out for.
Yeah, you can't get complacent, like we were saying with the Trapper in the last video. You've got to be careful and know that there could always be danger on all sides of you.
The great thing about it, they have kind of a funnel situation that they'll set up, and this is just like the real Antlion that does exist. From what I can remember from biology class back when I was a young man. They'll set up things where if you step into their lair, you actually will tumble down closer and closer. It's usually a funnel, and you will tumble down closer and closer to the antlion that is lying there at the bottom. But the great thing about the antlion for the players, believe it or not, is that there is usually a great amount of treasure in an antlion lair, because all these things have been falling down into its lair over time. So it's actually a beneficial thing if you can find one and kill it, and then go down and investigate its lair.
Exactly. It's a good one. That's just another one of those things that you have to be mindful of.
Not something that you would normally find in a dungeon.
No.
But you can.
But yeah, who knows?
You can.
Maybe there's lots of loose dirt on the ground in the dungeon. This next one I'm really not a huge fan of.
And we have another player
who would really
just freaks out about
dislike this one. It's a giant bee. Let's hear about it.
Giant bee is... These things are tough. And again, just so you know, these are in Monster Manual 2.
Yeah, we'll do the Fiend Folio in a second.
But the giant bee, I really like throwing out the soldier honeybee, which is... Usually you get one. I tend to throw 3, maybe 4 out at a time.
Or 100.
I haven't gone that high.
Who knows?
It could happen now.
Yeah.
But you're looking at armor class 5 here, 4+2 hit dice, so you're looking at a fair amount of hit points, up to, I don't know, between 32 and probably 50-ish hit points, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
But they do 1 to 4 points damage, not a lot, plus poison.
That's fun.
But I think the big part of this, though, is just the fact that it's a giant, massive bee, or series of bees that are coming at you. And I think psychologically, there's an aversion to this from the outset.
They hurt when they're small, and they get you.
Right. Imagine they have the size of them. They're man-sized. So figure we got a 4 to 5 foot. It's a big bee coming along. That's a scary, intimidating thing.
Yeah,
I like it.
I'm sure that you do.
But the person who is if the person who's watching this video that we think is watching this video is watching the video, yeah, we know that you hate them, and so you're going to be seeing more of them.
That's why he does it, because he's a meanie.
It's kind of how I am.
Up next,
One of my favorites, and I, as you know, and some of you who have been watching our videos know, I enjoy the little creatures like pixies.
Pixies and Pixies.
I have Pixies. I should explain the Pixies one of these days. I should do that.
Oh, they're a hoot and a half.
So it's an idea that I kind of quasi stole from one of my favorite authors, and then I've turned it into something in my campaign. But well, that's for another video. But I like the Pixies. I like the sprites. I like those kinds of things. Brownies, because their small size belies or understates what their actual abilities can be. And one of them, from a similar type of creature from the Monster Manual 2, is the Buckon. And Buckon are armor class 3. They've got 1/-1 hit dice, so you're not looking at a terribly dangerous creature. But the only thing is, they do end up having a lot of spells that they can use, just like the Pixies and the Sprites. Buckon can, at 6th level, use the following spell-like powers, one at a time, once per round. At will, audible glamour, change self, dancing lights, can become invisible. They can also use the following spell-like powers once each day: entangle, pass without trace, summon insects, and trip. So, to me, this is just another one of those. It's another one of those types of creatures that I can throw into a forest that will be slightly different. That might have a slightly different attitude than a pixie or a brownie or something like that.
And people are ready for orcs, and instead they get this.
They get this, right? But they're just another good small folk creature that you can toss out into your campaign to kind of mix it up a little bit. But I do like the Buckon. And then another one of my favorites.
Maybe.
is the Gollum Durr. The Gollum Durr, or the Gollum Durr, however you want to pronounce it. To me, this is straight out of Star Trek. The original series.
The only one worth watching.
It really is the best one. There is the Gollum Durr is, as you can see in this picture, the Gollum Durr is basically a big, intelligent rock. And if you there's a Star Trek episode where Kirk,
what's that one called?
I can't remember the name of it, but Kirk ends up fighting with one of the ultimate best top dog Vulcans. He also has Abraham Lincoln there with him. Then it's a combat between good and evil, and this rock creature is there trying to determine what is better, good or evil.
That's a good episode.
It's a great episode.
Oh, you should check it out.
And the Gollum Durr reminds me of that for some reason. But the Gollum Durr, armor class -2. It basically looks like a big rock. Armor class -2, 8 to 10 hit dice. You got a powerful monster there. Damage per attack gets 2 attacks. Damage per attack is 2 to 16, or 4 to 24, depending on what it decides it wants to do. But it's actually a very intelligent creature, but it's neutral. But going through the outdoors, you can come across a Gollum Durr in my campaign. Not very often, but often enough to make it interesting when you take off your backpack.
Of mountains. Yeah.
You make it sound like everything is to be afraid, is to be feared in my campaign.
I don't know where you're getting that. That's not how it is.
But going, you just got to be careful where you take your pack off and lean it up against a rock, because, you might be offending something if you do that. But, it's not like you have to be fearful of every.
It's not like you can't fall asleep, or you lay awake at night worrying about what might happen when you just make a simple decision.
Anyway, the Gollum Durr is one of my favorite creatures from Monster Manual 2.
Thus concluding the Monster Manual 2, and now we're going to shift gears a little bit into the Fiend Folio. Now, I feel like the Fiend Folio may be the least used of the 3 books.
For us, it is.
Would you agree?
I think so. For us, it is, except for a couple of creatures.
Strong exceptions that show up a surprising amount of times.
And I'm not really sure why I never got into using the Fiend Folio. I mean, we picked this up really early. I would say I probably picked this up in 1982-ish at the store. And there are some beings in here that are actually really good, but a lot of them just never quite fit it. Do you hear a cricket?
That's your phone.
Oh, I thought it was a cricket. Anyway... So we'll go through the creatures that we do use on a fairly regular basis, and you may see a pattern. If you saw our Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Monster Manual, that cricket just keeps going. If you saw our video on the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Monster Manual, the original Monster Manual, you will have noted that I tend to use a lot of undead in my campaign.
Which, again, you guys had a lot of discussions about in the video about the undead.
And what they can do. Anyway, one of my favorite undead creatures is from the Fiend Folio, and it is the Death Knight.
Yeah, those are so fun.
Armor class 0, 9 hit dice, but you use 10-sided dice to actually come up with its maximum number of hit dice or hit points. But to me, again, as I mentioned earlier in the other video, the Death Knight is just another one of those things that you can have a great story behind it. The Death Knight to me is the equivalent of the 9, the Nazgul, in a way.
That's kind of how they're used.
That's the way I perceive them. That's kind of the way that I work them into my campaign for those kinds of reasons. But the Death Knight is, to me, is a great monster. It is, of course, chaotic evil, and like I say, its damage is done by weapon type. So I usually armor or weapon it up with something that has some real power behind it. So Death Knights, if you come across them in my campaign, it's again something to be feared.
Yeah, one of the scariest things I've ever had to do in his campaign was fight / quickly run away from a Death Knight that owned a castle. It got really close. I don't think I've sweated that much sitting inside playing D&D. It was a scary moment.
Yes, the Disenchanter is another one of my favorites, because if you really want to see a character cry, I'm thinking of a paladin that I once knew.
It wasn't me.
No, it wasn't. But he knows who he is. If you have a paladin and they have their +5 Holy Avenger or some great armor, and you send out a Disenchanter, a harmless-looking creature that really is not going to be too antagonistic toward anyone. If that Disenchanter gets its snout onto a magical item, it will drain the item of magic.
Under your +5 Holy Avenger.
Becomes just another
sword.
Just another sword. But the Disenchanter is drawn to magic, and so it goes and seeks it out if it's in the area. And to me, it's a great creature to have around, just because sometimes you might give a character a powerful weapon that is great for a certain campaign, but maybe that powerful weapon becomes a little too powerful outside of that campaign. Time to throw out a Disenchanter and see if that...
time to make people sad.
Yeah, exactly. Time to break people's hearts and make them go home sad.
That has to be done sometimes.
Exactly.
You know?
Another creature that I like, and again, going along with my undead, is the Revenant. Revenant, armor class 10, hit dice 8, so, it's reasonably powerful, but the great thing about a Revenant is, again, it's supposed to be something that had a violent death, and it has returned from the grave to wreak vengeance on those who did it wrong.
Which is scary.
It is. And I have had Revenants follow player characters for years, trying to catch up with them. And, I've altered the rules a little bit on the Revenant. I've made them a little bit more powerful, but it's that story behind the Revenant, what has happened, and I like taking the Revenant and putting it into a situation where the player characters have done wrong by a non-player character, or they've let a player character die. Sometimes, if the conditions are right, I like to have that Revenant come back. In my campaign, I like to have consequences come back to players who do certain things. Not that they're doing anything wrong, but I like there to be consequences for actions, good or bad. It just makes great storyline.
It just makes it makes the characters have to think more deeply about the decisions that they make, because it's not just like, hey, if I murder this person, it's not just a moral quandary that they'll have to deal with if they're like a neutral assassin or something. There's also like real threats that they might have to consider coping with if they make the decisions that they make.
Yep.
So,
Revenant, good creature to have.
Up next,
keeping on my theme
of the undead and sadness.
And sadness. Is the Skeleton Warrior. And Skeleton Warriors are beings or creatures that are found quite regularly in my campaign in dungeons. Not that I want to make them not that I'm trying to kill players off with skeletons. It's just that they make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
That if you go into a tomb or something, having a skeleton warrior there is something that there's a strong possibility that there's going to be a skeleton warrior.
Yeah.
They're pretty tough. You've got their armor class 2. That's usually the armor class that I go with them, that I put on them. But they've also got 9+2 hit dice, which makes them pretty darn powerful. But they just have a variety of different things that they can do based on the weapons that you give them, the armor that they're wearing. And so the idea of a skeleton being present in a tomb or a dungeon, armored and ready to do something because it had a spell cast upon that, whatever the story is you might happen to put on it, to me there's a mental image there that, I don't know, it's almost like expected in a lot of fantasy role-playing games.
Now again, what you should keep in mind is we're not saying that these monsters that we've just told you about are the best ones that you should use. They're specific to being used in a certain type of world that he has constructed. Most of these are in reference to what he uses in his world, because he's traditionally our dungeon master. And these might not work at all for your world. And there are tons and tons of different monsters that you can use. But should you want to kind of build, especially a lot of these histories and storylines that are deeper and more underlying, that things, like he says all the time, that your players might never come across, these might be good monsters that you can just include to flesh out your world and make it seem more vibrant.
Right. I think that's well said. That they really lend themselves to that deeper storyline.
Yeah.
That you might be creating for your campaign. But don't listen to us. This is just our ideas. We just thought you might want to waste 10 or 15 minutes listening to us talk about what we like.
Let us know your favorites.
Put some things in the comments. Let us know what your favorite monsters are. There might be some monsters. There are a lot of monsters in those 3 AD&D books.
There surely are.
We might have overlooked some that are actually really cool. So let us know. Tell us if you have another character, another creature that lends itself to a good storyline or an in-depth storyline, or just there's just a crazy creature that you think is great and you like to throw them out in your campaign from time to time. Let us know about that too.
Let's hear them. All right. Be sure to check the link in the description. Check out our website and our coffee page for a lot of resources, other videos, blog posts, stuff we're selling, cups, hoodies, anything that you could ever need, you can find on our website and our coffee page. Links will be in the description and on the YouTube channel.
That's it for me.
That's it for me as well. We'll see you next time.
Keep your sword on free.
Bye.